What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Well, Sony made quite the announcement yesterday, as it appears they're really going to be testing the boundaries of the subscription pricing model for PlayStation Plus, and the internet wasn't too happy about it, which it makes sense. We'll go over that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about a new Nintendo Switch system that appears set for announcement that isn't exactly what I was hoping to see. And we'll also be talking about a delay for a certain set of remasters that I think, at the end of the day, is probably a good thing. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button, helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawnwave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And we're gonna start today with Spider-Man 2. We are less than 2 months away from this game, and it is one of my most anticipated games left for the year. Really excited to finally get my hands on that game October 20th. And it looks like you will have to make sure you have enough space cleared up on your PS5 because, as expected, with many of these PS5 games, it's gonna take up nearly 100 gigabytes. We can see this posted up, this over on psu.com. And the way we found this out is through kind of an unboxing for that special edition system. I believe Sony was sending it out to different people, influencers, stuff online. And on the back of the box, it says 98 gigabytes. And that doesn't necessarily include the day one patch. Still waiting to see how that turns out. And the box itself, like this PS5, remember, just comes with a digital code, so they can get these out earlier and, of course, sell the system well ahead of the game coming out, like, a month and a half before. And 98 gigabytes will just fit on that ultra high-def Blu-ray that holds 100 gigabytes. It's just interesting because I remember Mark Cerny discussing all the stuff about the SSD and how it would actually help to reduce the size of games, and we're still dealing with titles that are coming in right at that 100 gigabyte mark. And at this point, based on what we've seen with previous games, that's actually average. It's not too bad, 100 gigabytes. Imagine that like a generation or two ago. Also, as September kicks off tomorrow, Tokyo Game Show is less than a month away, and I'm expecting some pretty big announcements there, actually. Remember, the organization kind of putting this show together says it's the biggest Tokyo Game Show ever. And in fact, it appears Square Enix maybe is going to show up in full force as this happened online. We can see posted up by Warrior64, who linked to after noticing that Best Buy has Final Fantasy VII Rebirth up for pre-order. Interesting. Now, we see these pre-order pages go live at times, multiple years even before the game is ready to go. But we do know that Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is targeting the first half of 2024, and Tokyo Game Show coming up. Seems like it all makes sense to probably get the release date and a bunch more information to go along with that, with the story, of course, that people are really following here after the turn that they took at the end of Final Fantasy VII Remake, and I'm very excited to see where things go for Cloud, and we'll say some of the other characters that are now brought along from the previous series that they had. So exciting stuff. Look towards Tokyo Game Show. I believe we'll probably get at least a bit more info around Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and maybe even that release date. Oh, and with Sea of Stars now out, of course, in Game Pass and PlayStation Plus, it looks like a lot of people are getting a kick out of this title, of course, calling back to the old days of the 16-bit RPGs. And it seems like despite launching in both of those subscription services, they're actually doing pretty well when it comes to just outright sales. They posted this up over on Twitter, just saying, "We're speechless. Thank you. Sea of Stars, 100,000 copies sold day one." Now, I know we always talk about, how many millions of copies has this game sold? But remember, this game being a smaller title doesn't have the cost associated with it for development as opposed to some other big title, AAA titles or anything. They're clearly very happy with 100,000 copies selling, even after launching in the PlayStation Plus and Game Pass, where they got checks from both Sony and Microsoft. So this is awesome to see. I think Sea of Stars will definitely sell well over 1 million copies, and that's awesome stuff there, especially to show that, yes, the 16-bit JRPG sector, it's still alive and well, and I would like to see more and more games like this going forward. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with Nintendo and their presentation that'll actually be happening here in a couple of hours, but a system that we're anticipating them to reveal for the first time at that event, and that appears to be lining up with a Super Mario Bros. Wonder themed Switch. But it sounds a bit odd, and I think there's still some more information we need, obviously, going into the event, but take a look. This posted up over on D-Labs, where they say a new edition of the Nintendo Switch OLED will go on sale. Now, this is detailed essentially like what we had with that Mario Day Switch. Remember when that came out? So it's kind of some blue theming around it, obviously, to go along with Mario. So we had that Switch. But in this case, it sounds like it's going to be the OLED model. However, it'll be closer to like the neon red that we have already with those Joy-Cons just all the way around the system. So for the OLED model, remember that Mario Day Switch was just the standard red box Switch. So having an OLED that's kind of decked out in like that neon red, that'll look good, I guess, but based on what they're mentioning here, it doesn't sound as creative as I was hoping to go along with what looks like a visually stunning Mario Wonder. It feels like there's a lot you could do with a Mario Bros. Wonder Switch that they're opting not to do. Again, according to this early report, doesn't seem like there's going to be too much in terms of theming or etching or accents around the system. It's just going to be this neon red color scheme, and that's it. Now, they do mention that the pricing is going to be in line with what we see with the OLED, and based on themed OLEDs, for example, with Splatoon, it's usually, $10 more, so I would assume this would come in at about $360. And they also try to pinpoint the exact day it'll come out. According to them, it's before October, which, a month from now would be probably the cutoff for their announcement. So I would look at this and say last week in September, because remember, these systems tend to come out a couple of weeks even before the game that it's themed around will. Happened with Splatoon most recently. So I would look at this, or even The Legend of Zelda, I would look at this and say September 29th. It's a Friday, last week in September, of course, putting it before October. And if it does indeed get shown off as a neon red Switch, it'd be disappointing. I'm not necessarily looking to get another Switch OLED. I think I'm good where I am, and the only thing that would probably pull me off of that is if we had a Metroid Prime 4 Switch, because I've been waiting for that game the entire generation, and that would actually be something pretty cool to add to the collection. But hey, if you're a big Mario fan, you'd probably like to see a very creative Mario Wonder system. Like, I'm picturing some red, some purple, some blue thrown in there. They could have a lot of fun with maybe color changing on the back of the system, and then the Joy-Cons, they could do all kinds of stuff. So yeah, that'd be kind of disappointing if it just was all neon red, but hey, I guess we'll see later on today what they have in store for us. And of course, don't expect the game to come with it. You still have to buy that one separately, I'm sure. Next up, let's talk about Sony and an announcement they made for PlayStation Plus that did not go over well at all online. And yeah, it makes a ton of sense when you get down to it. And well, let's start here. Yeah, Saints Row. Man, it's rough. I know that people saw Saints Row and just lost their mind right now. There's a bit more hidden at the bottom of this blog post, but if we take a look at the September monthly games as being for Essential, we have Saints Row, Black Desert Online, the Travel Edition, then Generation Zero. So not much to write home about when it comes to the September monthly games for Essential, but nonetheless, you can check these out September 5th, at least add them to your library and claim them. You might as well, you pay for the service, which, speaking of paying for the service, further down in that blog post, they detail new pricing for PlayStation Plus. And when I had seen this pop up with the headline, I figured, oh, maybe it goes up $1 or $2, couple dollars, 10% at the most. No, try about 30% more, which that is quite the price jump. If we take a look at the different tiers now as they outline them, PlayStation Plus Essential coming in at $79.99. So $80 a year is the tier you would need to play online multiplayer, cloud backups, or of course, get Saints Row. So there you go. I know it's probably pushing you over the edge right there. PlayStation Plus Extra, the 12-month subscription, goes from $100 a year to $135 a year. It's a $35 jump. And then PlayStation Plus Premium goes from $120 a year to $160, which, by the way, places it, about $20 per year less than Game Pass Ultimate, which does get Microsoft's day one releases into the service. And it's Starfield. That's technically coming up, early access tonight, but in a week, that'll just drop into the service, which is something that Sony still has not really done when it comes to their big first-party titles. And I gotta admit, this one caught me off guard, as it did basically everyone online, because that is a substantial price increase. We've seen subscription services go up across the board. A lot of the video streaming services have done that, right? Microsoft raised price, not 30 to 35% though. That is, it's like unprecedented at this point. So looking at the situation here with Sony, we know like they obviously went ahead, broke up the tiers, added more expensive options, and they saw positive results, believe it or not, from that. And it would make sense that someone who might go from essential up to extra, and while Sony's subscription services, the raw numbers have not necessarily moved at all. In fact, they are not apparently reporting on those any longer, and that's because it's been flat. But the revenue has jumped substantially because of those more expensive offerings that, yes, get you a larger library of games, or in some cases, game trials, and some of their retro games. I mean, if you take a look, Circana did that entire report where we went over with the Switch passing the Wii in the US. Well, they also mentioned that game subscriptions have pretty much plateaued at this point, and that is basically everything. I mean, if you look at it, Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo haven't really been super excited to discuss how many people are subscribed to any of their services, whether it's Nintendo with their expansion pack tier, Sony with anything from PlayStation Plus, or Microsoft with Game Pass. It's been pretty tough to get any of that information out of them. And so with Sony no longer needing to report numbers when it comes to how many people are subscribed, they're just going to do revenue. Yeah, they raise the revenue up 30%. If 10% of people drop out, they're still actually going to be positive and make more money on this. And this, to me, comes down to more of a principle thing across the board for customers who are, to be honest, looking around. I don't really know why you would subscribe to PlayStation Plus Premium currently. I do think this is also setting up Sony when it comes to their cloud streaming side. Of course, they are building out these data centers with this Project Chronos thing behind the scenes, and maybe in their mind, that's going to make this more valuable. But to me, cloud, like the cloud streaming stuff, is just more of a benefit. It's not a big driving factor when it comes to subscribing to a more expensive service like PlayStation Plus Premium. And the retro offerings have been below average. Like it's nothing that's gotten people very excited. And if you look at what they've done for PS2, it's been like the bare minimum. They seem to count remasters from that generation that were on the PS4 as new PS2 games for the service. And I thought, maybe I was a little crazier. I thought we were just going to get PS2 games that would run through an emulator that we haven't really seen before, but yeah, we're still waiting for that. So I'll be curious how this works for Sony going forward if people start to fall out of favor when it comes to PlayStation Plus, which $80 a year gets you cloud saves and online multiplayer for what's mostly been third-party games, but I guess they have their live service offerings coming up starting, we'll see, next year maybe. Otherwise, though, I mean, they gave you Saints Row with bad news. It's just weird. You feel like they show up with something really, really cool. Hey, PS3 games. We got the emulator working. Here's 20 PS3 games, or add more and more as we go along. We have to raise the price, but we're going to add more and more. It's like, oh, okay, well, I mean, there's more games. No, they just said, here's Saints Row. We're jumping the price on premium by $40, everything else by about 30%. Maybe that's the move. You stock up on Saints Row. If you have bad news to give, you give it, then you just hand Saints Row over. Maybe it's the reverse. Saints Row, bad news. They're just so distracted by that. So, hey, I mean, we got a Direct coming up, we think, soon, right? So there's probably going to be disappointment there. It's like, well, okay, we didn't see Metroid Prime 4, I know, but here's a copy of Saints Row, so I think we're even. Next up, let's talk about a remastered collection that people were really excited to see get announced from Konami, of all places. And no, I'm not talking about the Metal Gear Solid HD collection that, well, the jury's still out on that one. This, though, was one that many JRPG fans were excited to see, right? And that is the Suikoden 1 and 2 HD Remastered Collection. Well, there was a message that was put out, unfortunately detailing its delay out of 2023, which is when we were expecting it to release. We can see this posted up. This over on the Suikoden Twitter account. They say, regarding the planned release of Suikoden 1 and 2 HD Remaster, we have reached the conclusion that despite the very best efforts of our dedicated development staff to release the remasters in 2023, additional time is needed to ensure the quality, performance, and gameplay experience our users deserve. The entire Suikoden team is renewing our efforts to bring Suikoden 1 and 2 HD Remaster to release as soon as is possible. And I actually think this is a good thing based on what we have seen previously with other remasters that came out and were just a mess. Chrono Cross is one that comes to mind. Tales of Symphonia, absolutely one that comes to mind. So really, for something like Suikoden 1 and 2, I would prefer them to just kind of sit in development until they're ready so you get it right, because this could lead to a new Suikoden game if it comes out, is high enough quality, and maybe can capture a new audience even. Remember, a lot of these games, while like I may think of like, oh, okay, yeah, I remember seeing that on the store shelf for the PS1 days. That's not the case for most gamers now who are just coming into the hobby. They see it as this is the first time. So if the game comes out, it's filled with bugs, glitches, graphical problems, translation issues, whatever, and they just pass on it, that could kind of be the end of that franchise or the series, or Konami goes, you know what, I don't even want to look at this anymore, and who cares? So yeah, I'd rather it be really good when it comes out, maybe extra features, bonuses, and then just a high quality release, and see how it does in that setting, because if it does well, and sells, and there's interest, maybe we do get that next game in the franchise. But I'm thinking we're gonna look towards maybe the first half of 2024. They could also discuss it somewhat at Tokyo Game Show. So I guess we'll look out there for more info. Otherwise though, chalk this up as a 2024 release. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about Sega and the future of Sonic when it comes to 2D Sonic and that pixel art style. This caused quite a bit of discussion around the longevity of that setup, right? The Sonic Mania, right, as an example, that kind of look. Well, this was according to Sonic team head Lazuka talking with Games Radar at Gamescom. This is what they had to say. Last year, we released Sonic Frontiers, and what Sonic Frontiers was doing is taking the open zone concept to cement that 3D Sonic gameplay as something we can build on for the next 10 to 20 years to continue bringing new gameplay experiences to players. It was really the evolution of where the 3D Sonic space was going, and we feel very proud in what the team was able to deliver. However, we look at the pixel art, it's great, but when we think about 10 to 20 years in the future, we don't think it's going to be a viable art style or presentation for our players. And in order to advance and really step things up, we did want to make sure that we're presenting something that 10 to 20 years down the road, we're still evolving and creating new content for. So, I mean, really, if you consider it this way, okay, so Sonic Frontiers, I don't think is as good as Sonic Mania when it comes to a quality standpoint. Just look at Sonic Frontiers, things 20 feet in front of you pop in, right? The whole joke and all that. But in this case, I believe Sonic Mania will age better than Sonic Frontiers 10 to 20 years from now, just because I think the pixel art style holds up very, very well. But I understand in the sense that Sega looks at that and says, well, we can't sell this for more than $20 or $30, can we? Whereas Sonic Frontiers, they absolutely sold at full price, the $60. So they're probably looking at this perspective with business in mind of, well, if we dress it up, have it kind of be 3D models, but in that 2D plane, we can do a lot more when it comes to the visual factor that would probably grab the mainstream audience that does make up a large portion of the market share to buy in for hire, right? That's the biggest thing there. And while I don't necessarily agree when it comes to pixel art not being viable 10 to 20 years from now, because I think you could make a Sonic Mania game 10 or 20 years from now, and we'd all be really excited about it like we were with Sonic Mania just a couple of years ago. So in their mind, though, we make the visuals better, we get more money from it, and maybe they also want to do other things outside of just the pixel art style where they have kind of that 2.5D look. But to me, pixel art stands the test of time. I think we'll still be enjoying those kind of games 20 years from now, no problem. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're gonna take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday. We're asked, are you currently subscribed to PlayStation Plus? All right, well, 54% say no, I'm not subscribed. If you don't have a PlayStation, I don't really know why I'd be subscribed, so that makes sense. 21% though say essential, which if you wanna play online multiplayer, yeah, it makes sense. It's technically is essential there. 14% though on premium and 10% on extra. Little surprised that that's not reversed. I figured extra because I do think that is the best value out of the three. At least when it was $100, it would have made more sense. But now I guess premium Yeah, I'm curious if people are going to look at the price increase and just say, I think I'm done for now and unsubscribe, because if Sony sees that and it's enough, then maybe they walk this back a bit. It's very strange times right now for Sony. And I got to say, it kind of reminds me of those PS3 days when they were up on stage talking about the $600 PlayStation 3 and the giant enemy crab and dropping the PSP. Kind of like the old days of arrogant Sony, but well, I guess they have a showcase coming up soon. They kind of need something, since I don't really know what's after Spider-Man 2. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from SCJ Productions saying, I'm very interested to see how Microsoft tries to create a larger Japanese audience. I feel it would take timed exclusivity of games in order to do so. If that's the route they go, it's also going to be tough to convince Japanese developers to make an Xbox exclusive when the Switch, PS4, PS5 are bigger in Japan. Well, they just have to pay more money. That's all it comes down to. Game Pass deals, or just outright fund games through partnerships and bring them to market in Japan with the Xbox logo next to it. The other avenue, though, and it's something they're doing now, is using the Switch. Minecraft on the Switch is incredibly popular in Japan, and if you want to play online with that, you need an Xbox Live account. So that's probably where a lot of their monthly active users out of Japan are coming from. It's probably from Minecraft. And if they can continue to partner with Nintendo through other initiatives like that do have you sign into an Xbox Live account, because we know that Microsoft is really all in on monthly active users and just having more and more engagement on their platform, that technically counts. So that I think is the best pathway for them, is with Nintendo, and then also just putting out bags and bags of money to Japanese publishers and developers to make games that they can put next to the Xbox logo. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below, but everything we talked about here today was PlayStation Plus and the price increase. How do you feel about that? And are you going to stick with your subscription? And then also, what about Nintendo with this apparent Mario system? What are your expectations for the Direct, and are you going to get the special edition system? Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.